Bookstore clerk watched Clint browse for 45 minutes, then said, "Sir, I don't think you can afford our books anyway. This isn't a place to kill time." What Clint bought, $4,200 worth, and what happened to the clerk left the store silent and the owner furious. It was a Saturday afternoon in November 2017, and Clint Eastwood was in Carmel, California, browsing at Chapter and Verse, an independent bookstore that had been part of the community for 23 years. The store specialized in first editions, signed copies, art books, and rare film books, the kind of place where serious book collectors spent hours and serious money. Clint loved bookstores, always had. He'd visit them whenever he had free time, spending hours browsing sections on film history, photography, Western Americana, and classic literature. He wasn't the kind of person who rushed through a bookstore with a specific title in mind. He liked to explore, discover, find unexpected treasures. On this particular Saturday, he was shopping for gifts. The holidays were approaching, and Clint liked to give books to his crew members, friends, and family. Thoughtful books, chosen specifically for each person based on their interests. It was something he'd been doing for years, a personal touch that meant more than generic gifts. He'd arrived at Chapter and Verse around 2 p.m. and had been browsing quietly, methodically working through different sections. He'd pulled several books from shelves, stacked them on a side table the store provided for browsers, and continued searching. Behind the counter was Trevor Kane, 26 years old, who'd been working at Chapter and Verse for 8 months. Trevor came from a retail background where the emphasis was on turnover. Get customers in, get them to buy, get them out, make room for the next customer. He'd brought that mentality to Chapter and Verse, even though the store's owner, Patricia Morris, had tried to explain that their store worked differently. Browsers were welcome. Book lovers took time. Patience was part of the business model, but Trevor didn't see it that way. He saw an old man who'd been in the store for 45 minutes, taking up space, pulling books off shelves, not buying anything. To Trevor, this was loitering, not shopping. The store was moderately busy, about 15 other customers scattered throughout, and Trevor felt this old guy was taking advantage of the store's hospitality. Around 2:45, Trevor walked over to where Clint was browsing the photography section. Clint had just pulled down a beautiful Ansel Adams collection and was paging through it carefully. "Sir," Trevor said, his tone polite but with an edge, "you've been browsing for quite a while. Are you finding everything okay?" "I'm doing fine, thank you," Clint said, not looking up from the Ansel Adams book. "Is there something specific I can help you find? A particular title?" "No, I'm just looking, thank you." Trevor stood there for a moment, trying to decide how to handle this. The old man wasn't getting the hint. "Sir, I should let you know that our books are quite expensive. These art books run anywhere from $60 to $300. Just so you're aware before you invest too much time." Clint looked up from the book. "I understand the prices. It's just that you've been here for almost an hour, and I wanted to make sure you weren't under the impression this was a public library or something. This is a retail store. We're here to sell books, not provide free reading space." A woman browsing nearby, Sarah Martinez, a regular customer, glanced over, noticing the interaction. Trevor's tone wasn't quite rude yet, but it was approaching that territory. Clint closed the Ansel Adams book and looked at Trevor directly. "I'm shopping. I'm looking for books to purchase as gifts. Is there a time limit on browsing?" "No, sir, but 45 minutes is quite a long time to not have made a purchase decision. Other customers come in, find what they want, and check out within 15 or 20 minutes. I don't mean to be rude, but I don't think you can afford our books anyway. This isn't really a place to kill time when you have nothing else to do." The store went noticeably quieter. Several customers who'd been browsing nearby turned to look. Sarah, the regular customer, had her mouth slightly open in shock. Another browser, an elderly man named Robert, stopped mid-reach for a book and stared at Trevor. Clint stood there for a moment, processing what had just been said to him. The clerk had just told him, in front of other customers, that he couldn't afford the books and was killing time because he had nothing better to do. It was a combination of wealth assumption and age discrimination wrapped into one condescending statement. "I see," Clint said quietly. "Thank you for your concern about my finances and my schedule." He set down the Ansel Adams book and walked toward another section of the store. Trevor, thinking he'd successfully managed the situation, returned to the counter feeling like he'd done his job protecting the store from time wasters. But Clint wasn't leaving. He was shopping more purposefully now. He went to the film history section and selected 3 books, then to the photography section, including the Ansel Adams volume Trevor had worried about, then to the Western history section, then to the literature section, then to the art section. He pulled books steadily, checking his mental gift list, matching books to people he knew. Each book selected was deliberate, chosen for a specific person. Patricia Morris, the store owner, happened to come out from the back office and saw Clint with an armful of books, adding them to the growing stack on the side table. Patricia recognized Clint immediately. She'd been a fan for years and had seen him around Carmel many times. She walked over with a welcoming smile. "Mr. Eastwood, are you finding everything okay? Can I help you with anything?" "I'm doing fine, thank you," Clint said. "Just finishing up my selections." "Take your time. Would you like me to hold those at the counter while you continue browsing?" "That would be helpful, thank you." Patricia picked up the stack, 12 books so far, and carried them to the counter. Trevor, who was helping another customer, saw his boss carrying an armload of expensive books for the old man he'd just insulted. His stomach dropped. "Trevor," Patricia said quietly, "this is Mr. Eastwood. He's been shopping with us for years. Please ring up these books and he'll be bringing more." Trevor's face went pale. "Mr. Eastwood, as in Clint Eastwood?" "Yes." Trevor felt the world tilting. He'd just told Clint Eastwood, a man who'd lived in Carmel for decades, who could buy the entire bookstore if he wanted, that he couldn't afford their books and was killing time because he had nothing better to do. Clint returned to the counter with 5 more books, then went back and got 3 more. Then remembered someone else and grabbed 2 more from the film section, the final stack on the counter, 22 books. Patricia began ringing them up, her practiced hands scanning each book with care, wrapping them in the store's signature tissue paper. Trevor stood frozen behind the counter, watching. The total grew: $180, $520, $980, $1,650, $2,340, $3,100, $3,820, final total, $4,247.50. The store had gone completely silent. The 15 other customers in the store had all noticed what was happening. Some had overheard Trevor's earlier comments. Others had seen the massive stack of books. Everyone was watching. Patricia finished wrapping the last book and looked at the total. "Mr. Eastwood, your total is $4,247.50. Clint pulled out his credit card and handed it to her. "Thank you, Patricia. Your film history section is excellent, by the way. We try to keep it well stocked for people who appreciate the subject." She ran the card, handed it back, and began loading the wrapped books into shopping bags. It took 4 large bags to hold everything. Then, Clint did something that made the moment even more memorable. He looked at Trevor directly and spoke loud enough for the nearby customers to hear. "You were right about one thing. These books are expensive, but you were wrong about everything else. I wasn't killing time. I was shopping thoughtfully for gifts for people I care about, and I can afford them." He picked up the 4 bags, heavy with over $4,000 worth of books, and walked toward the door. As he reached it, he turned back. "Patricia, thank you for maintaining such a wonderful bookstore. I'll be back." "You're always welcome here, Mr. Eastwood." He left. The door closed. The store remained silent for several seconds. Then Sarah Martinez, the regular customer, spoke up. "Did that clerk seriously just tell Clint Eastwood he was too poor to shop here?" Another customer. "I heard him say it. I don't think you can afford our books." Robert, the elderly browser. "He said it was just a place to kill time, right to his face." Patricia turned to Trevor, her face showing controlled fury. "My office, now." In Patricia's office, Trevor tried to explain. "I didn't recognize him. I just saw an old man browsing for a long time, not buying anything, and I thought—" "You thought you could judge a customer's wealth by their age and appearance. You thought browsing was the same as loitering. You told a customer, any customer, that they couldn't afford our books. Trevor, what you did out there goes against everything this bookstore stands for. I was trying to prevent time wasters, Book lovers are not time wasters. This is a bookstore. People browse. People take their time. People spend an hour or two finding the perfect book. That's not wasting time. That's being a thoughtful customer. And you have no right, none, to tell someone they can't afford our merchandise. I didn't know who he was. That's the point. You shouldn't need to know who someone is to treat them with respect. You should treat every customer like they might spend $4,000, regardless of how they look or how long they browse. Trevor had no defense. He'd revealed his own bias and cost himself his job in the process. "You're fired," Patricia said, "effective immediately. Collect your things." Trevor left through the back door 20 minutes later. He never saw Clint again. He tells the story now as a lesson learned, about assumptions, about patience, about not judging people by age or appearance, but mostly about how one moment of condescension cost him a job he'd needed. Patricia sent Clint a handwritten note the next day, apologizing for Trevor's behavior and thanking him for his patience and his business. Clint wrote back, thanking her for maintaining a bookstore that valued books and readers over quick transactions. The story spread through Carmel's small business community within days. The independent bookstore that fired a clerk for insulting Clint Eastwood became a story about values over profit, about treating all customers with dignity, about understanding that book browsing is not time wasting. Patricia instituted new training for all employees. Browsers are welcome. Time spent in a bookstore is never wasted. Never, under any circumstances, suggest to a customer that they cannot afford our books. Judge sales by courtesy, not speed. Chapter and verse hung a small sign near the entrance. Browsers welcome. Take your time. Book lovers appreciated. The 15 customers who'd witnessed Trevor's comments and Clint's $4,247.50 response told their friends. Those friends told others. Within weeks, it had become part of Carmel lore. The bookstore clerk who told Clint Eastwood he was too poor to shop there, and the $4,000 response that got him fired. Sarah Martinez, the regular customer who'd witnessed it all, said later, "I've never seen someone so thoroughly proven wrong by a credit card receipt. Trevor assumed an elderly customer browsing quietly couldn't afford expensive books. 45 minutes later, that customer bought more books in a single transaction than most people buy in a year. It was beautiful justice." Clint continued shopping at Chapter and Verse regularly. He still browsed for 45 minutes, an hour, sometimes longer. He still dressed casually. He still selected books carefully, thoughtfully, as gifts for people he cared about. And every employee at Chapter and Verse learned the story of Trevor and the $4,247.50 purchase. It became their training story. Never assume, never rush, never judge. The person browsing quietly for an hour might be your biggest sale of the month.